the camera. So I'm just curious to know, just by a show of hands, raise your hand if you know somebody or have known somebody that's been impacted or affected by heart disease. Just raise your hand if you know anybody. It kind of looks like everybody. Well, no wonder that the American Heart Association has gone on record to say that heart disease is the #1 killer in the world. It's the #1 killer in the US, ahead of all cancers combined. And an interesting statistic is that every 40 seconds, somebody in this country suffers a heart attack. I did the math the other day. That's 2,160 heart attacks or strokes a day. That's a lot. I also see a number of women on this call today, and I'd like to share with you another statistic from the American Heart Association, that 1 in 3 women will die from cardiovascular disease. And a really sad statistic, I think, and I'd love for the women to listen into this one, is that women wait 30% longer than men to seek help when suffering a heart attack. That's from the American Heart Association. So here we go. I've been often asked to tell my story and, what caused a profound transformation in me and catapulted me into an approach to living a brand new life, one that I call Life 2.0, hence the title of the book that I wrote. But I do struggle with that a little bit because I really don't think of myself as having a story. But I will tell you that what I'm going to talk to you about is a chapter of a great story that's being told by a team of selfless, caring medical professionals that inspired my recovery and most noteworthy impacted my living well beyond the healthcare setting. So I will tell you that by the grace of God and the efforts of countless people, I'm here today. I'm here with a heart filled with a desire to make a difference in people's lives, perhaps yours. There's 2 parts of what I'm going to take you through. One is a kind of a medical part, and then the other is more of a transformation into this new life. And they're both intertwined, so I've got to kind of go through them. But here's how it started. Life was perfect. I felt perfect. However, what I didn't know is that my life at the time was really the calm before the storm. I had no symptoms, no signs, no warnings of any health issues whatsoever. I felt perfect. I am leaving a routine doctor's office. We're done. He gave me his 15 minutes, my primary care physician, and I get to the door and I stop, and out of my mouth comes a question I hadn't been thinking about before. And it's a question that really later proved to save my life. It's also a question, I might add, that proved to me that divine intervention is real. This is how it went. I knew the doctor. I call him Doc. I said, "Hey, Doc, I want to ask you a question. I feel great. I feel fantastic. So I hope you don't think this is a weird question. But do you think there's something at some point in time we should check on the inside of my body?" That's the question I asked. Rather than saying, "Kevin, we'll keep an eye on things and we'll see you next time. Have a great day," because the guy had patient after patient after patient after me. He stopped a minute and he looked at me and he said, "Yeah, maybe I think you should go do a cardiac calcium scan." And I go, "What is that?" And he goes, "Well, you basically lay down and 10 minutes later they take a bunch of pictures and you get a result and off you go." And I said, "Well, what does it do?" He said, "Well, it's not conclusive. It's what they call a marker test, but it does measure the amount of calcium throughout your cardiac artery system. And if you have a lot, that means you should go have some more testing. If you don't have any, then you're probably good to go. And we've checked that off the box and we don't need to do anything." So on the way out of the doctor's office, I actually walked by the radiology department. I was curious. I'm wondering if that's where they did these scans. So I walk in there and I introduced myself to the lady at the desk. I said, "Is this, where you do these cardiac calcium scans?" He said, "As a matter of fact, it is. What's your name?" I tell him. She says, "I see your doctor just ordered one. Well, we could take you right now. Would you like to do it?" I said, "No, I'm busy. I've got to get back to work." This was on a Friday. She says to me, "Can you come back on Monday morning?" I said, "Yeah, I can." And by the way, to be honest with you all, I told her, yes, I can, just to get out of the situation. I really didn't have any intention on going, but something over the weekend told me I should go take this test. So on Monday, I get up, I go take the test. The only thing different about what I was told and what I experienced was it seemed like my test took a long time, not 10 minutes. But, eventually I was glad I did it. I got on an airplane. I went up to California on business. I get to my very first meeting. I'm 5 minutes into my first meeting. My cell phone rings. And it was from my doctor's office. And I sent it to voicemail thinking they were just calling to tell me the good results. 5 minutes later, the phone rang again. Again, I sent it to voicemail thinking it was a mistake. They called me 2 more times in the next 7 minutes, 5 or 6, 7 minutes. And I said, somebody's trying to get a hold of me. So I stepped out of the meeting. I called back to the office and I got Nurse Kathy on the phone. And I said, Kathy, somebody's been trying to get a hold of me. And she goes, Kevin, it was me. She goes, your test results were not good. And I said, oh, okay. What does that mean? She goes, it's the worst the doc's ever seen. I go, oh, well, what does that mean? She goes, Kevin, it means you are at an extreme risk of a cardiac event or a stroke at any moment. I stopped in my tracks. I thought to myself, did I just hear that my next step could be my last? And I said, what do I do? And she said, we've got an appointment with the cardiologist. You need to get in there this afternoon and see them. And I said, I'm in California. What do I do? She says to me, can you remain calm and come home immediately? So I did that. I wasn't calm, but I got on a plane and headed back to Dallas, which is where I live. I called my wife and said, hey, I just got here, but I'm coming home. There's a problem. So on the airplane ride home, I got onto the Wi-Fi of the airplane and I started looking up this calcium test. My wife did the same thing and we were emailing back and forth. I found a chart on Dr. Google. I call him Dr. Google. That basically said the results, the chart had results from 0 to 400. 0 is what you want. 400 is what you don't want. And I thought to myself, well, I can't be a 0 because they said it was bad. And I certainly can't be a 400 because I did see a description at that level that said this: probability does exist for extensive cardiac damage. And I'm thinking, that's not me. I don't have any damage. I feel great. So I'm somewhere between 0 and 400. Well, the next morning on the way up to the cardiologist's office, I called Kathy because I had forgot to ask her what my score was. And I said, Kathy, what can you look up my test and tell me what my score was? She said, yeah, just a minute. Well, it turns out I was right. It was not 0. I was also right. It was not 400. It was 6,518. It was so far off the charts, I thought I was going to wreck my car. So I told her something had to be wrong. And she said, well, the technician couldn't believe it either. So she ran the test 3 consecutive times and got the same result. And that they had confirmed that the machine that was doing the scan had been calibrated just the day before. So I kind of knew something was wrong and I was in trouble. So after some testing, it was determined that I needed to have a heart catheterization. That's where they run a catheter up in your artery system and they look around to try to diagnose what is wrong. And it's a procedure that they don't put you completely out for. You're kind of awake, but you really kind of don't know what's going on. But it seemed like the procedure just started. And I said, hey, doc, how's it going? And the next thing I remember, and I can remember this as I'm telling you all today, his face is right up next to my face. And he says, young man, you've saved your own life. He said, let's get you up to your room. And there's nothing I can do for you right now. Let's get you to room and talk to you about where we go from here. So when I got into the room, I'm sitting there with my wife and the cardiologist had just did the procedure. And he said, they found out that 3 of my major arteries were quite blocked. One of them was 100% blocked, meaning 0 blood flow was getting through. One was 90 and one was 80. And my wife asked him a question, the doctor a question. He said, well, if one of my husband's major arteries is 100% blocked, why is he still alive? And he said, it's what we call God's work. He said, the heart is a muscle that has the ability and a tendency to build these things called collaterals in the event that it finds a section of the heart that's kind of starving. And he said, your husband has built some collaterals, and this is why you're still alive. And so I thought that was pretty interesting. And then the other thing I later found out is the section of my heart, the section of the heart where one of the arteries was 90% blocked is an area that is commonly referred to as the widowmaker, which is the indication of why they felt that I was in, pretty much grave danger. So I was given one option to live, one option to survive, and that was open heart cardiac bypass surgery. I would like to share with you that at that moment, when you get to that moment, at least for me, I was bombarding myself with emotional questions. And then I didn't know at the time, but my wife had a big question for me. Some of the questions I asked were, hey, will my next step be my last? Will I never meet and hold my future grandchildren? Have I played catch with my son for the last time? How do I make peace with my maker? What are the steps? Have I danced with my wife for the last time? Will dying hurt? Will I suffer? How's my wife going to cope if I don't come through this? So the night before surgery, there was an ice storm in Dallas, and I had to be at the hospital like at 5:30 in the morning. We chose to stay in a hotel that was literally on the hospital's campus. And so we're in this hotel room, and I'm nervous. I'm trying to watch TV. My wife's putting her clothes up, and she gets done with that. She comes and she sits on the bed. She puts the TV on mute, and she said, I'd like to ask you a question. I looked at her. I said, of course you can ask me a question. You're my wife, anything. And she said, this is a very, very selfish question. She said, oftentimes when people have these types of surgeries, they come out reporting having seen a light. And if that happens to you, don't be frightened. But they report to being very attracted to it. So if you see your mom and dad, who passed away a number of years ago, if you see them, here's my selfish question is, please, will you not go? Will you please fight it with everything you have? I'm not ready for you to go. And it really dawns on me that her fear was just as great, if not greater than mine. So moments before being wheeled into surgery, I literally was at my life's heightened state of vulnerability, anxiety, and fear. They're wheeling me in. They're wheeling me into the operating room, and I'm thinking about what they're doing. I already know that they're going to put me out. They're going to open up my chest. They're going to stop my heart for a few hours. I'll be living on a machine, and they're going to repair my heart and try to restore me. All I could think to do, we started this conference with a prayer. So I'd like to share the prayer that I said when I closed my eyes the moment I came into the operating room. I said, dear God, I've come to terms with my mortality. My precious wife is not ready for my passing, but please take me today if it is your will to do so. And if my life is to be spared, I pray that you will help me achieve a bucket list of the 3 most essential items in my life. Number 1, I'd like to dance with my wife again. Number 2, I'd like to hold hands with my wife and take a walk. And number 3, I'd love to meet and get to know my unborn grandchild. Thank you for the life you've given me so far. I give myself entirely and completely up to you. At that moment, I felt a prayer coming over me, and it almost was like I was under a waterfall of prayer. It's the most amazing thing, and it dawns on me. I'm in this operating room just before this is all going to happen, and it dawns on me a number of people that I worked with let me know in advance that they would start praying for me the time my surgery started. Well, here's the good news. The good news is I felt and I heard their prayer. Even greater news is God answered mine, because I've already had that dance with my wife. We've taken many walks, and I've got the most amazing grandson who was also named after me, Kevin. He's Kevin the third, that you would ever want to meet. So switching gears here a little bit, I've come to learn that all big things are made possible through little things with lasting impressions. This Life 2.0 that I talk about, and I share a little bit about it with you, is a big thing for me, and it came about through a bunch of little things. My most prominent and lasting memory are the little things that were done for me and my family when I was in the intensive care unit and I was recovering from the surgery. I literally counted and documented over 120 such things that occurred. And I would like to share a few of those with you. These are just very little things that really made a difference. Remember the primary care physician that I asked that fateful question of? He could have very easily just dismissed me and gone on to his next patient, but he didn't. So that little thing of listening, thinking, and responding, I believe saved my life. I don't believe that had he dismissed me, I don't believe I would be here today based upon what I now know. When I was told I had one option for survival, the cardiologist who told me that, um, I said, I need your help, doc, with two things. One is I feel like this, we've got to move fast. I don't know anything about scheduling surgery or anything, but can you help? Can you help me? And then the second thing is I don't have any clue about who heart surgeons are. Could you help me find a really good one? I don't know what to do. And he said, he's rather than saying, yeah, Kevin, we'll get you scheduled and I'll give you some options for some physicians and you can pick one. He said, just a minute. He steps out of the room. 5 minutes later, he comes back and he said, I've got great news. We're going to move really, really fast. And he said, I've already talked to a top-notch surgeon that's going to accept your case. So I go meet with this top-notch surgeon for the first time. And he's like any other surgeon you can imagine. He was very calm, very methodical. He told me what was wrong with me. He told me how he was going to fix it. He told me I would come through it just fine and I would recover. And, it was all just kind of matter of fact. And at the end, he said, do you have a question for me? And I said, yeah, I do have a question for you. I'm I really have done a disservice to my wife because if I don't make it, I'm leaving her with a mess. And I said, that's not right. So for her sake, can you really bring your A game? And most surgeons, you can imagine, most surgeons would say, of course I'll bring my A game. You bet I'll bring my A game, or I always bring my A game. Not this guy. You know what this guy says to me? He says, I'm honored, grateful, and privileged for the trust and faith that you're giving me by putting your life in my hands. He paused and then he said, and yes, I will bring my A game. So at that moment, not only did I know I had a world-class surgeon, I know I had a world-class person. Excuse me. When they're about ready to start my surgery, they had to start an IV in me, and I was a little nervous. I think the nurse that was going to start the IV sensed that, and she just sat there. She took my hand and she said, Kevin, I just want to let you know nothing's going to happen to you until you're ready. And so if you just like to sit here and visit, we can do that and take our time, and you just let me know when you're ready. What a kind thing to do, rather than just taking my arm and starting an IV. What a beautiful, kind thing to do. At night, when my wife was gone and the room was dark, I would have this nurse come in every hour on the hour to test my blood sugars. Dr. John talked about blood sugars. They're very concerned. I was a type 2 diabetic. And so she would come in to check the blood sugars. When I see her coming, I'm thinking to myself, I hope she's bringing me morphine to deal with the pain. I would like to get some more morphine. Interestingly enough, one time she comes into the room and she says, hey, Kevin, what do you think your blood sugar test result's going to be? And I tell her, I give her a number, and she goes, well, I think it's going to be this. And there started a game. And so every time after that, when I saw her coming, I wasn't thinking about the morphine. I was thinking about playing and winning that game. It dawns on me months later what this young lady was really doing. Out of the kindness of her heart, she was giving me a break from the recovery, some peace from the pain that was in. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget what she did. Whenever you have this kind of surgery, they want you up on your feet as fast as they can get you. Now, I will tell you, you can't walk by yourself and you can't walk very far. So they want to gradually get you into this. But a big milestone was the ability to walk around the nurses' station. And the day I was able to walk around the nurses' station, I was met with two things. I was met with a high five, and I was met with the words from this nurse that said, you're a rock star. And you know what? I wake up every day and I think I hear that high five and that rock star. What a little thing to do, but with making big impact. When I started recovering, I was going to rehab. I'd have to go up to the hospital 3 days a week, and I'd enter the hospital. I'd walk past the emergency room to get to the rehab area. And there was always a lady sitting there behind a glass window. I think she was an attendant for the emergency room. First time I walked by, our eyes met and she smiled. Next time she smiled. Next time I got a smile and a wave, and I kept getting the smile and the wave. And I look forward to that. And I ended up telling her what a little thing like that made all the difference in the world. So essentially what all of these people were doing through these little things is what they were doing is affirming my value and my relevance and my importance as a human being. You see, they placed their lives on hold for me. They taught me about my medications. They taught me how to eat, how to exercise. They taught me how to smile for no reason. They taught me how to be kind to a stranger, and I learned how wonderful it felt to be kind. They encouraged me, they challenged me, and they even high-fived me, as you know. And most importantly to me, they actually ministered to my wife during a time when I was unable to. But yet, they asked for nothing in return. So I started thinking, I started contemplating, did these caregivers, were they also teaching me about a better, more abundant life that I could live? You know, through my observations of the many little things that they did, along with 3 separate encounters with angels, and I do mean encounters with angels. Uh, Sorry to disappoint you. No wings, no harps, no anything like when I was growing up and saw pictures of church. I saw them through the eyes of others. Very fascinating. But with all that in mind, I began to formulate a new approach to living in a life rooted in their example. I felt compelled. I needed to pay them back. I needed to pay it forward. I wanted to show them that their efforts paid off. Um, they made me want to give to others as they gave to me. I formed a daily an exercise habit. Today I do a cardio workout twice a day. I take my meds religiously. Um, in about 8 months, I lost about 50 pounds, which is a lot because I went to the extreme of what Dr. John was saying. I went to a diabetic diet, cut a lot of weight out. I beat diabetes. My primary care physician said, you can stop taking your meds. I did that. And I really started to look ways to pay it forward and administer to others. Several months after my recovery, I was at a event at the hospital. It was a public event for cardiovascular awareness. I'm done with the event. I'm leaving. I was approaching these rotating glass windows, and there was a man on his hands and knees washing the windows. And as I approached, I said, man, you're doing a great job. And I promise not to mess up your windows. And he stands up and he turns with a big smile on his face and he goes, it's quite all right if you do so, sir. You know what he did? He was affirming my value. He was basically saying that you, Kevin, are more important than the work I've done on these windows. And it was okay for you to destroy those. And in that moment, I knew that I was on the right track in this life. So in Life 2.0, I'm focused on living life through the eyes of others. God opened my eyes, my ears, and my heart to the blessing of witnessing what happens, the impact on others by simple affirmation of their value, their relevance, and importance. You know, I believe it's a form of love. I believe it's a form of love we all can give. I used to, you pass somebody on the street and we all call them strangers. I have to be honest with you. I no longer see strangers in my life. I no longer see strangers as I pass down. I understand the human condition. I understand everybody has pain. I understand everybody has opportunity. I no longer see separation and divide. So sorry, there's some background noise. Every day I make a choice. You might find this interesting. My choice is live or die. If you were to look at my calendar on my computer, every day at 6:30 in the morning, I have a question, live or die. If I choose die, I just live like I did before. It's really easy because after all, that's what was propelling me to death. If I choose live, I just stay with my routine, and I have to affirm the value of another human being before I go to bed every single day. And mostly I like doing that with strangers because you see them come alive when you do that. It could be as simple as, buying their donut or opening a door or saying something kind about them or passing a compliment on. So Life 2.0, this is what I've concluded. It's not a mindset. It's not a frame of mind. It's available to everyone. It's really about a heart set. It's really about a frame of heart. So I truly hope I've said something today that's inspired you, or somebody that can be inspired by what you heard. I do believe a number of you will pass this on and contribute to saving a life. And let me pause and let you know another fact. Sadly, since I began speaking, approximately 30 plus people in this country have suffered a heart attack. I'm deeply grateful and honored that you shared your time with me today, and coming from a deep place in my heart, may God bless each and every one of you. Elizabeth and Elton did mention this book I wrote, Life 2.0, A Journey from Near Death to New Life. If you're interested, I will suggest to you that the book will inspire you in some way about your health, maybe about your life, about somebody else's health, about somebody else's life. I get constant reports back from people that spend time with it that, I get different ones. Either it woke them up to their health and they went and got checked out and they went and got this calcium scan. Others come back and say it's inspired them to live their own version of Life 2.0, which I think is fabulous. Others have told me that they've shared the journey and by doing so made a contribution to saving a life and, maybe helping somebody achieve their own bucket list. So I'm going to go to the chat session right now, and I'm just going to put something in there. It's a special on the book. If you would like it, no, don't feel obligated. If you don't want to buy it, that's fine. If you can, I'm going to give you how to do it and get a good price and no shipping and no taxes. And it should be very simple. So if I go to the chat session and paste that in.
And while Kevin is doing that, what I want to do is I want to go to the next speaker, Jerry, and then we'll take a break and we'll come back just by logging in the same number. And then Kevin, I hope you'll be around to do the book signing after the break. Then we'll do the panel discussion on the three presentations. So Gila, I know I hope you'll still be on, and Brian and Kennedy and all the panelists that we allotted. So the program now goes on to Jerry, then we'll take a break, we'll come back for the book signing, and then we'll do the panel discussion and get into the next speaker. Does that sound good, everyone?
Well, do need to add that I'm sure there's some questions for Kevin. If you'll hold on to them, because we really want to get his personal insight on your questions. It's an amazing story. I mean, it's phenomenal, actually, because he actually one of the few people that gets to share, or as he puts it, Life 2.0. He gets to start all over. It's an amazing story. It's really an amazing story. And I think more and more people should hear the story and need to be familiar with it. And of course, the best way is through the book. But of course, I mean, and I think it's one that deserves a recording and rehearing. But if you have questions for Kevin, please hold on to them. We want to make sure we get his bounce back for those. Okay. So Jerry, let me just give Jerry an upfront. Jerry, we met Jerry some time ago, and Jerry's an amazing person. He has he got his history through the military, and he's a retired Navy person, and also he served in several capacities in the Navy, and we have gotten to know his expertise, and he's a representative now after his years and many years of contract service and Navy service, and we want to thank him for that. He now is a representative for Shackley nutritional benefits, and he will share with us his insight and some of the solutions that we might be able to offer. And he is the perfect reference to supplemental solutions for chronic ailments. So with that being said, Mr. Jerry Baker, please share.
Right. Excuse me. Thank you, Elton, and Kevin, thanks so much. It's going to be a tough act to follow, but I've had a similar experience, although not quite so dramatic, where I ended up in the hospital with a cardiac catheter, and thankfully I had some blockage in the lower anterior descending, the LAD or widowmaker, and had a stent placed, and thank God I made the decisions I did, like you, not to ignore something that was a little concerning to me. So thank you for that presentation. I definitely would like to get that book and to spend time reading it. I want to give a little background. We're going to talk about personalized nutrition, but how did I get here? So a little bit of personal background. In 1970, which I know is a long time ago. I graduated from college, Galvin University, in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I started a program in medical technology, which is these are the people that are in the laboratories in the hospital who are analyzing the fluids that they receive from the hospital wards and so on. And I was halfway through that at Christmas time. I got this delightful letter from the United States government that invited me to join the United States military. Um, Although it's invite was probably the wrong word. It was insistent in that. I went home for Christmas and went to the draft board and convinced them